4, and then I went to Wolverhampton for a year,
Right.
which was a nightmare. I didn't stay very long.
So we'll get into all that. Let me just introduce the podcast, and then we'll get started in the conversation, and we want to hear all of it.
Okay.
So, hey, everybody. Welcome again to the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, Davio Venturis. As always, I'm joined by the esteemed cardiologist, Dr. Federico Macy. Most of you know him as Dr. Suave. We are very excited today. We have a phenomenal guest, Jimmy Melia, former Liverpool and England player, as well as coach, and we're going to get into all the details. So join us. Welcome, everybody.
Great to have Jimmy here.
So, Jimmy, my first question to you, you played in what is now the Premier League, but at the time it was called the
Division 1.
Division 1.
Yes.
Who was the player that was the most amazing you ever played against?
Well, I loved Johnny Haynes, who played with Fulham. He was a midfield player, played in the same position that I played in. It was the England midfield player, and I couldn't get in the England team till basically he finished up having an accident, and I got my first cap against Scotland in '63. Remember that? That's the year I think England won the World Cup at England. So Johnny Haynes was the player that was keeping me out, and then they changed the coach. They went to Alf Ramsey, who was the one that won the World Cup in England. So I got in the team, and I played really well against Scotland. Then we went on tour, and I had a little bit of an ankle injury, and I wasn't the same player that I was before. And so we went on tour, and Alf Ramsey said, everyone in the tournament will play. So we played behind the Iron Curtain, played Germany, and then went to Switzerland to play them, and we finished up beating them, I think, 7-0.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I scored a goal in that game, and that was the last time I played for England.
Oh. Was it so your injury kept you out of it, perhaps, or?
I would say that England at the wrong time. I was picked to play against Brazil at Wembley. Unfortunately, I couldn't play in the game.
Because of the injury?
Because of the injury. What happened, I was captain of Liverpool in this game at Fulham. And, you know, I was the main player. And so people said, you got to mark him. You got to make sure he doesn't get involved. There was a player called Bobby Keach, who was like an animal of a player. So he went right over the top on my ankle. And my ankle just...
gave out.
My ankle just lit up, you know. Yeah. So it took me. I couldn't play in the semi-final of the FA Cup for Liverpool.
Oh, wow.
Against Leicester. So it was a vital time in my career.
Right.
And it took me a long time to get over it. You know, I was still playing Liverpool, but then I had a bad game against Everton, and Bill Shankly, who was a very famous manager at Liverpool, left me out of the team. Well, I got a little bit annoyed because I was at Liverpool for 12 years and I was the regular player in that position, playing over 300 games. And I think I scored 79 goals.
You had a very good, I looked you up, you had a very good scoring record.
Absolutely.
Now, back then, tactics were different than they are now.
Well, I think everyone played the same way. Like everyone played 4-2-4, and that's the way they played. Then it started to change. You know, we're getting against Europe, so they were picking up different ideas, how to play different against different teams. And it was probably still the best in the world, the league, like it is today.
Right.
So back then, let's go back to the post-war years. You're a young lad, and you know, catastrophe hits the world. Of course, World War II, late 1940s. Soccer starts to emerge once again throughout England, of course, throughout the world as the number one sport. And so Germany wins the cup in '54, as you recall, against Hungary. you were probably just a teenager at the time. And I imagine the English clubs that were really looking at the next World Cup, I suppose 58, right? That was in Sweden, as I recall. That's when Pele emerged.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I remember watching the game and seeing
Yes.
Pele. My eyes just lit up. He was only 18, I think, at the
Yes,
time.
or so, yeah.
And I just, dreamed about him. And, such a great player. And I'd love to see him play more in England,
Did you get to, in the game that you played at Wembley in the mid-'60s, prior to the World Cup, prior to the English World Cup, you played against the Brazilian very stacked team, I imagine.
Well, I was picked to
Yes.
play.
But he wasn't able to play.
You
for
weren't-
England, but I wasn't able to
Right.
play. That
But-
was the time when I had my ankle injury. And,
Right. Pele was on that team, right?
Pele was on the team it was at Wembley.
Yes. So he played
He
part
played,
of the game at least,
yeah,
I imagine.
yeah.
How was it to see him at that time? He was still a young man.
Well, he was the best, and I think the best player in the world,
Right.
because he had so much ability. He could score goals, right foot, left foot, and could score with his head. I remember the game when England played against Brazil in Brazil, and Gordon Banks was the
Right.
England manager.
Yes.
I'm sorry, the England
The
goalkeeper.
keeper, right,
Goalkeeper. And Pele headed this ball, and he made this unbelievable save.
Yes.
And everyone still talks about it in England,
Yes. So, in your Liverpool career, you guys had a stacked team. I recall your team won the cup in 63, 64, hands down,
Yes.
right? You had 3 or 4 All England players that played on the 66 World Championship team.
Well, we had Roger Hunt and
Yes.
Ian Callaghan. Roger played in the final.
Right.
I gave him his first goal when he first come and
Yes.
played for Liverpool
How?
against Scunthorpe at Liverpool in Division 2 at that
Yes.
stage. I gave him a great pass, through ball. He controlled it and scored. So I was pleased that we had, like, St. John came, great forward, wasn't sort of the tallest player, but good in the air for his size. And then we had Roger Hunt and
Yeah,
myself. And then we had the great Bill Shankly arrived
Right.
at Liverpool. Under 3 managers there was Phil Taylor, who was the player. He came as a manager. Then Don Welsh, he was a manager there. Then the great one came, Shankly.
Right.
Yeah.
He was such a character. Like,
What made him such a better manager than the ones that came before, in your opinion?
he had the fantastic enthusiasm for the game. If you ever met him and you talked about something else about football, he would just walk away, So, like, he was this.
He had
type
one
of-
channel.
Yes, only channel, and this made everybody else, lift up, and their eyes lit up when they talked to him.
So
Right.
it wasn't a tactics thing. It was a man management sort of inspiration thing.
Yes, by far, this was, he wasn't the best coach on the field, but he was the greatest manager,
Motivator.
motivating all the players. I mean, when he used to have a press conference, the press conference say, "Mr. Shankly, winning is like life and death to you." He said, "No, it's more important than that."
That's great.
Did he influence you when you're managing career?
I think he motivated me to be a better player. I was always a useful player, but Liverpool spent a long time in Division 2, and I played for Liverpool when they were in Division 2 against Nottingham Forest. I was just 18, and I scored a goal, and that was one of the times I remember scoring, because it was at the Cop end, which, as everybody knows, it's very famous.
Right.
And it was everybody standing up to watch the game. So that gave me a good start that year.
That was your first goal?
That was my first goal for Liverpool.
Oh, wow.
In my first game.
Wow.
So that was
Golden boy.
Yes, that was terrific start. I finished up 18 playing about 5 or 6 games. Then at the end of that season, I went in the army and done 2 years with the Royal Navy, and I was coming home nearly every weekend to play for Liverpool. And then when I got back, Phil Taylor, who came to the regiment and spoke with the colonel about getting me off to play.
Yes. Gave you a little more.
And I was so lucky that the national army team, we had a goalkeeper called Alan Hodgkinson in goal, played for England. We had Bill Folkes, who played for Manchester United. We had Graham Shaw, who played for Manchester United. And we had one of the greatest players ever, Duncan Edwards, who played, Bobby Charlton, you know.
You guys were stacked.
And we were stacked with players, and
Yes.
I was lucky to play 3 or 4 games for the Army team to play with
Yes.
these great players. I remember in one game we played a friendly, and most of the games were friendlies, playing against Crystal Palace. And we got a corner, and Duncan Evans come to me, said, "Jimmy, just come out of there." Oh, yes, Duncan. I moved out of the goal area, and he went in between and got the ball and scored. So I looked up at him and thought, keep telling me what to do.
What was Bobby Charlton like?
Bobby Charlton was a great friend of mine. Bobby and I played for England schoolboys at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So you've known each other since you were wee.
Yeah, since sort of at 15.
Oh, that's a great age, yeah.
Yeah, and he was a great player then. And when we played for England, he was the left winger and I was the inside left.
Right.
So we played together, and
So you would play a lot of combinations and...
we got used to each other, and we looked good together.
Right.
And lucky enough, Liverpool got to the semi-final and played against Leicester, and Bobby got to the semi-final against Leicester.
Right.
Liverpool, and Bobby got to the semi-final with, I think it was Southampton. So we were talking, and we said to each other, if you get to the final, I want to expect 2 tickets for the final. But we didn't make it. Bobby did. So I didn't bother him about the tickets. And next thing I get a call from him, when are you coming to collect these tickets?
Oh, you remember.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
He became he was the captain, right, for the World Cup team, or was it Bobby Moore?
Bobby Moore was
Bobby
captain
Moore was
then.
the captain,
Yes.
as I recall.
But he was the main player,
Right.
Bobby Charlton.
They were an amazing duo, though.
Oh, yeah.
those
Well,
two.
we had so many good players,
Yes, yeah.
And Alf Ramsey, who was, again,
Right.
the coach of the team, motivated the team to play well. Wasn't the greatest coach, but was one of the greatest motivators.
As well.
So
Very good.
you scored a lot of goals. Midfielders don't usually score so many goals. What would you say is the way that you scored? Like, what was were you late into the box, or was it headers off of corners? Where were you getting all these goals from?
Well, most of the goals were coming late onto the crosses and the midfield player playing through balls, because I remember like probably just 3 goals, and that was the first one against Notts Forest
Right.
at Anfield. Then my 21 year, when I just come out of the army, I was leading goal scorer at Liverpool with 21.
That's
Wow.
Well, for a
For a
midfield
midfielder,
player,
That's a
pretty
lot.
significant.
and then the game.
Yeah. Oops. Yes. Go on.
The game changed, and like midfield players were just playing mostly midfield, but I still found a way. I normally got 10 goals a season at Liverpool.
Right. Which was a pretty significant number for a midfield.
Well, for a midfield player,
Yes.
it's really good, you
Quite
know.
good. But you were also one of the main playmakers, I imagine, feeding to those.
Well,
Wingers?
I probably achieved more by passing to
Right.
someone else to score goals. Like I said about Roger Hunt
Right.
in his first game, I gave him his first goal.
Yes.
You know,
Set him up.
yeah.
Very nice. And-
And I remember the one team we played Tottenham at Anfield. I think it was '63, and Tottenham were the top team then. They won the league and the cup. FA done the double.
They did the double.
Right, the double.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we were losing 2-1 at half time. I finished up scoring 2 goals in the second half.
Oh, wow.
And we finished up beating Tottenham. I think it was 5-3.
Do you remember those goals?
I just remember scoring. I don't remember how I scored them.
Right.
But everybody at Anfield,
When you score so many, they run together.
the people at Anfield started singing, you know, about Tottenham, you know.
Yes.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down.
That's funny.
And the amazing thing is, them days that you would play a game at Easter time on the Friday and then play on the Monday in the return game. So we went to Tottenham on the Monday to play the return game, and we lost 5-1.
Ooh.
And Bill Shankly said, if we hadn't give up that goal, I think we could have won.
That's funny. And so in those years, the equipment, the fields, the training, what was it like? Were you guys on the field training multiple times a week?
It was practice every day.
Every day.
And
6 days a week?
yes, every day, 2 hours a time. Like Liverpool, when Shankly come, he used to love playing a five-a-side with the ground staff
Right.
players. And this morning we're playing and we finished. So I went up to Shankly and said, "Boss, it's time to leave. You know, it's 12 o'clock." And he looks at with the ground staff kid. He said, "We'll have the winning goal," he said. So they're playing away, and the kid scored a goal. And so Shankly didn't like losing.
Yes.
So he said, "That was no goal." Behind. And then there was Chris Lawler, who was a very good player at Liverpool, was standing there and very quiet, never said a lot. So Shankly said, "Chris, was that a goal?" Chris put his head down and said, "No, boss, it wasn't. It was a goal." And he looked up and he said, "Chris Lawler, the first time you talk, you give them a goal."
Yes. But so the training was pretty strict
It was
at that
strict.
time.
It was different. And the amazing thing is, them days, I just looked up and seen Shankly were bringing his first practice, a load of balls on his back, you know, because before we used to run from Melwood, the training ground, from Anfield to Melwood, and by the time we got there, the legs were all stiff, and
right.
you know, so Shankly changed the practice by using the ball in every practice, a lot of shooting practice, a lot of understanding each other, where to go and when to go.
And that was new. That was a new tactic. Yeah.
That was new in England, and like them days, Liverpool was still in Division 2 at that stage. And Shankly come, we got to Division 1, where in 2 years they'd won the Premier League.
Right.
That was the Champion League at that stage, you know. And Liverpool just went on to be the greatest club and the greatest team in Europe.
So the at the time, that was sort of the beginning of the Beatles as well. Liverpool. So Liverpool was on the map both for sport and for culture and music at the same time.
Yes, the Beatles, I used to go down and watch them at the Cavern nearly every
At the
night.
Cavern.
Yeah.
Wow.
How soon, like how long, early in their rise, did you hear about them? Like, do you remember the first time? Like,
Well,
walk us through that.
I just heard about the Beatles being down the Cavern and like being a little group, I think of 4, and "They Love You," yeah. The songs he used to sing, and like there wasn't a lot to do, say, in them days in Liverpool. So we used to go down the Cavern and see them. So what happened? They got to know me, you know, as a player, Liverpool, because they were Liverpool supporters
Yeah, of
at
course.
that stage.
And their parents, I guess, too, right?
Yes.
Had been historically.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we're in a nightclub in London, and Paul's there, and we're sitting down and we're chatting away, and Paul says, "Jimmy, see that girl over there?" "Yes, Paul. Can you introduce me to her?"
That wouldn't have been Linda, would his future wife, or he was dating someone else.
He wasn't married them days.
Yeah.
So the cabin was a destination.
That was in London, and that was one of the famous places that
Right.
the famous people used to go to. And I went. I wasn't famous.
Well, you
Well,
kind of
I
were.
mean, you kinda
on the
were.
soccer side. And I'm sure they were all big fans as well. And so those lads growing up there, I'm sure when you guys started winning, that was a source of pride for them as well.
Well, Liverpool there wasn't a lot happening in Liverpool them days. If you were people and you said to me, "Jimmy, I'm going to go to Liverpool," I'd say, "Don't go,"
Right.
because the people will pinch your wheels off your car.
Oh, my.
Yeah, them days, was that bad. People were desperate for work. There wasn't a lot of work. If you worked on the docks, you were lucky.
Right, right.
So when did that start improving?
I would think it started to improve probably in the late 60s. Things
Right.
got better. Like Liverpool now, if you were going to England, I'd say, go to Liverpool. They've got the Beatles Museum. They've got
Right.
the Titanic Museum, great people to talk to. And, of course, and they got a great team.
Right,
Right,
right.
well.
And back then as well, as you guys became a dominant club in England and in Europe at the time, the stadium, was it, when you guys were in second division going to first division, was the crowd just as enthusiastic while you were in second division as when you became famous?
I think they became more famous when we went to the
First, was it really packed, the stadium? Like people would fight for those tickets?
Yeah, well, I was an Evertonian as a kid, and I used to go and watch Everton play.
You betrayed your childhood club?
Yeah.
How did you end up in Liverpool?
Yeah. How did that come to be?
It was so funny that the coach or the scout from Everton used to be down at the house all the time saying, "Jimmy, we got you ready." And I thought, I was all set to go to Everton, So what happened, Bobby Campbell, who was a player, played for Liverpool with me, lived in the same street. So he was doing well. So he said, "I think you're better off coming to Liverpool,"
What was his reason?
His reason that he felt that you would learn more at Liverpool at that stage. Well, what happened, the teacher that was chasing after me as well came to the house and said, "Come on, we're going to take you to Liverpool. You can leave school now. You don't have to play for England. You've already played for England schoolboys." So I went there to Liverpool and worked on the ground staff, doing the odd jobs, bringing cleaning the cleats for the players,
Right.
putting the towels in for them shower, and because I was just 15.
Right.
And being on the ground staff them day was completely different, say, today, when they go to school and they learn and they go to practice twice a week, So it's different. And I think them days, it was better because you were learning from players at the club and getting in the right environment with the players.
Was that complete apprenticeship?
Yes.
Right.
Everyone that come up with 15, 16, 17 would go and do the odd jobs. And I think was a good idea.
Humility goes into it.
Into what I mean. We used to do the painting at Anfield in the off season.
Right.
The dressing rooms that needed painting, we used to do that. And we went down to Melwood, which was the training ground, and then they were just building floodlights. So we dug the holes in the flood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for the floodlights. So you're always doing something.
Something. And what did your parents think about you doing that at that time?
Well,
your mom and dad?
It was unfortunate that my dad died before I was 15, and my mother had 11 children. So it wasn't easy time.
Right.
And I think
Were you older, younger? Where were you in the?
I
in
was
the 11th?
I was midway. Yeah, none of my brothers or sister played.
So your
And I
mother
was the-
probably said he's busy doing something good
Well,
that he enjoys.
I was lucky that them days you'd get I think about £2 a week. Then I went and got my mother a washing machine, which before
Was a big deal.
was a big deal.
Right.
Before they'd be walking to the
Right.
washing place, bringing
then-
all the washing.
then
Yeah,
doing the scrubbing.
yeah.
Yeah, and then the dry hanging and
Well, even then, Bob Paisley, who become the manager at Liverpool, we used to wash the players' socks after the game,
right,
and be doing it. He'd be washing, I'd be drying or something.
right. That's amazing compared to what we see today in the
Oh,
pros and so
yeah.
on. But it really, the best players usually come from, disadvantaged and or to some degree, communities in need.
Them days, because there
Yes.
wasn't much work.
Yes.
You would be rather on the docks or going away to sea. That's
Right.
what my two brothers did.
For if you live in Liverpool, that
Yes,
was the
yeah.
expectation.
Because we had a seafront there,
Right.
which the Titanic and other
Sure.
ships used to go out of.
Out of there, yeah.
How many hours when you were young, before you became with the club, when you were just coming up, how many hours a day would you say you played? Because you got good somehow, so I would assume it was.
Well, I would say that at 15 to 17, because I signed professional on my 17th birthday, practice was every day, and every opportunity I would get at home, I'd be kicking the ball against the wall and getting used to doing little things because
Drills,
I was a skillful player, and I'd watch, like, say, Pele or the Brazilians play because they were the top
Right.
team in them days. I'd watch and
Right.
pick up ideas about step overs and back
Yes.
turns and thing,
They won the cup in World Cup in 58, and then again in 62.
62, yeah.
And so the expectation with Pele
Yeah.
was that they would win in 66. Of
I
course,
mean,
that did not happen,
yeah.
and you guys won.
Yeah, it was great to watch them play. Your eyes would light up the things they could
Yes.
do. So that was the thing to do. And unfortunately, we didn't have much of a television them days.
Right,
Right,
sure.
Or we didn't watch games on the television.
But you
know.
get the newsreels
We
here
get
and there,
them,
right?
Yeah, we get little, scratches of seeing one or
Yes,
two
yes.
games.
Yes. So after those years, then you ended up your career with
What happened? Liverpool sold me to Wolverhampton, £50,000, which was a lot.
Oh,
of
wow.
money.
That was a big.
Yeah,
yeah.
for Wolverhampton, because I think them there's about 27, 28, and the manager at Wolverhampton was a very famous manager called Stan Cullis, and he seemed to like me because when we played against Wolverhampton, they were one of the top teams and the first team to have floodlights in Europe.
Oh,
Oh wow.
Yeah. So we played there one league game, and I scored 2 goals, and I got my third one, and we came to centre.
You got a hat trick?
I got a hat trick.
wow.
And then the linesman put his flag up to disallow me goal. So that was the first time I got a hat trick in a game, which got disallowed.
Pretty impressive. But the coach noticed it.
He noticed it, and he seemed to like me because he wanted me to be a coach at Wolverhampton because I was
Eventually.
very enthusiastic and
Right.
talker. My life was soccer.
Yes. You were single at the time, I imagine. You didn't have a wife at the time, or?
I just got married at the time because she came to Wolverhampton with me.
Oh, I see. You married in Liverpool,
I was married in Liverpool.
I see.
Yeah.
and she's a lady from Liverpool.
Well,
or-
yes, she was from Liverpool.
And how did you meet her?
Met her at some party or something, and
He was hanging out with the Beatles. He could meet anybody. So, how much longer was your career after you went to Wolverhampton, and then because then you went into managing, right?
what happened at Wolverhampton? They fired Stan Cullis, the manager.
Who was the one who liked you?
Yes.
Right.
So I criticised the chairman in the newspapers,
Ooh.
saying that he was always late for the games, and we used to just go away and leave him. So
That must have been quite a controversy at the
it
time.
was at that time
We-
because I used to write in the local newspaper
Right.
there at Wolverhampton. So he brought me in to the office and said, "Why did Stan Cullis tell you to do this?" "No, I done it myself, you know." So he said, "You will never get a job in the game." That's what he said to
Wow.
me. So
That's quite a
within,
threat.
within 2 months, they'd sold me to Southampton, who were in Division 2.
Right.
You know?
So that was on purpose that they sold you to.
Oh,
a local-
yeah. And I don't know how much they sold me for because I think they must have had a big loss. You know?
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they bought you for so much.
Yeah. So they sold me to Southampton. Ted Bates was the manager them days. Very enthusiastic, loved the game. Came down and picked me up at Wolverhampton, all the way to Southampton, which was about 4 hours in the car. And I didn't have, I think I just had a car around that time. I listened to him talking about the game, so I think I've got to go to this club. So I went
Because
there.
he was so enthusiastic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went there and stayed there for 4 years and then put them in Division 1. I scored the goal at Plymouth that put them in
In the
Division
in the
One.
game.
Wow.
Division
Oh,
1.
is that your favorite memory?
About Southampton was, but they had a lot of good, skillful players, but never good at the back, you know. Would lose 5-4 or 3-2.
High scoring
you
games.
know,
So you
high
could
scoring.
score but couldn't defend.
Well, it's so funny because within 2 years, we go and play Wolverhampton at the Dell, which was Southampton's field.
Home field, yes.
Yeah. And with 10 minutes left on the clock, we were beating them 6-1.
Wow.
I created all the goals but never scored. Well, I thought,
Yeah.
I'll beat, I'll
That's
beat
impressive.
Wolverhampton.
Did they still have that same guy who sold you?
No, they had Ronnie Allen, who was
Oh.
a different manager.
I see.
Mm.
But I'm sure that gentleman was watching and
Well,
remembered.
it's all over the papers, you know.
Yes.
He didn't score, but he did create a few.
He did create a few, which is
And that was your revenge game, basically.
Well, it wasn't, you know, it was just to show them, you know.
just
Yeah, sure, but
Yeah.
it must have been so satisfying to have that. Would you consider that your best game that you ever played? Where you didn't score?
It's difficult to pick out
Yeah.
games that would be my best game. Well, that was probably one of the games I remember. And the other one I remember is going to Plymouth and scoring a goal that put Southampton in Division 1.
First division.
Yeah.
Did you stay with that team in the
I
following year
stayed there for 3 years with Southampton.
in first division?
And then I went to Aldershot, which I was manager, player, and coach.
Wow.
What division were they in?
They were in Division 3, and I stayed there for 3 years, and then they weren't very good, you know. So I went back to Crewe in England, and I played there. Well, I was the manager, really, and just started to manage, and then
Manage but not play.
not play. So in between that time, I went to Dubai, played in coached in Dubai. and
Was
then
that
went-
in the early, like late, say 1970s, 71,
in the
72?
70s, late 70s?
Like,
Yeah, I went and coached in Dubai, and like
Right.
from being a lad at Liverpool who didn't have a lot, I used to go to the sheikh used to bring me to the palace every day.
oh, wow.
So
That's
we'd be
very
sitting
impressive.
down having food. You were using your hands.
Interesting.
But it's so funny that just recently I hadn't spoke to Sheikh Faisal bin Khalid Al
Right.
Qasimi. He called me about 2 months ago. Hey Jimmy, how you doing? I'm doing fine. He said, if you know anybody that wants any work here, let me know. So first time he spoke to him for years, you know.
Oh, that's lovely. So you
Yeah.
guys had a close relationship.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. You know, every opportunity I used to get, I used to call him, or vice versa, he'd call me, you know, because it started to build up Dubai around that stage, you know.
And at the time, most of the players were local players
Yeah.
from Saudi Arabia and surrounding
Yeah, mostly local.
the Emirates.
And like you would get maybe 30, 40 at practice. the other time you may be lucky if you get 10.
Right.
You know.
Why? Because they were working or what?
They weren't dedicated. I think they didn't have someone that was out. I mean, every night I'd be out there coaching a team or 10 players, whatever, turned up, you know.
Right. Your wife went with you. Did you enjoy your life in Dubai?
Yeah, I enjoyed it there, but she came over. The agreement was that they would pay for her to come over in December time. So she came over with my 2 daughters.
2 daughters, right?
Mhm.
And that was enjoyable, I'm sure.
Yeah,
right?
it was
In your
great,
culture.
you know. But I stayed there, and I done, I think, 2 years
2 years.
there. Then went back to England and finished up in England for 2 years. Went back to Kuwait. Done a year in Kuwait. Come
so
back.
interesting.
Yeah, and then I went to Brighton, which
At the time, what division were they?
they were in Division 1,
Oh.
in the top league.
And you were manager there?
I was chief scout.
Scout.
So I was going around watching teams and players that could come to the club.
Were you mostly recruiting in the UK or were you going all over
Holland,
Europe?
Europe. Went to Holland a few times. Some players over there. So while I was there was a manager called Alan Mullery. So he got fired. Then they brought another manager in. I was still there. Then he got fired. So I took over as manager.
Right.
And they were struggling at the time, right at the bottom of the league. And they lost a place in Division 1, but got to the final of the FA Cup
While you were managing?
while I was manager.
How did you turn them around?
Basically, got them organised, and they seemed to be more wanting to win in cup ties. Like the first game, we played Manchester City, and we beat Manchester City 4-0 at Brighton. And then we went to Newcastle. After tying Newcastle at Brighton 1-1, we went to Newcastle, and I don't know how we done it, but we won 1-0 at Newcastle.
So you advanced.
So we advanced.
Yes.
So they used to have the FA Cup draw every Monday, and all the people used to sit round
Sure, yeah.
and watch, you know. All of a sudden, they come out. Liverpool will play Brighton.
Oh, wow. Your home team.
Yeah. So I went to Liverpool, and one of the reporters said, Jimmy, you've got more chance of winning at Liverpool than you have your hair to grow.
And you proved him wrong.
So we went to Brighton and beat them 2-1.
Incredible.
So that was like Bob Paisley wished us well. He was the manager at that stage. But that was a great result for us going there then. We had the next round against Norwich at home, 1-0. Then we had the semi-final against Jackie Charlton, and we beat them at Highbury. Them days, they used to have the semi-final that one of the local teams, you know, say
Right.
if teams were in the final, they'd pick out where it was, even to both teams. So we went to Arsenal to play the semi-final. We won 2-0. And then we had the final against Manchester United. We go 1.
Wow.
Who was playing for Manchester United at the time?
They had Robinson,
Okay.
Brian Robinson. Is
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Brian Robinson, he was playing. And so, I mean, at Wembley.
Wow. Impressive.
So we went to Wembley and we went 1-0 up. We scored, Gordon Smith scored the goal. So the next thing is United got on front 2-1. So on the last kick of the game, we were 2-2.
Oh,
And we had the last kick of the game. Gordon Smith had a chance to beat Manchester United 3-2. The goalkeeper put his leg out and saved it. And everywhere he goes, Gordon Smith, the one who missed the goal. Gordon Smith, oh, you're the one who missed the goal at Wembley.
Oh, boy,
Yeah.
I remember. Did your friendship with Jackie Charlton remain all of those years in the same way?
Bobby Charlton, yes.
Oh, Bobby, sorry.
He was a brother, Jackie.
Or
as
Jackie
well.
was a brother.
Yes.
Okay.
I was more friendly with Bobby.
Well,
than
Bobby,
Jackie.
I'm sorry. But you remained
Yeah.
since childhood to
Yeah.
the end of the career.
so after you had that cup run, did other clubs like try to like sign you?
Or recruit. Yeah,
Because that's a very high profile
Yeah,
thing, and
FA
you
Cup.
took, and especially to take a club that was doing so poorly all the way to the final, that must have really upped your standing.
Well, the Chelsea manager, owner, came to Brighton, so he didn't offer me the job at Chelsea, but he came and just wanted to find out what I was like, and so nobody else really came. I stayed at Brighton just for a year. They fired me. We didn't do well in the second division. So then, from where did I go from there? Oh, I went to Portugal.
Portugal.
Yes.
Wow.
In Lisbon, Belenenses of team, and they were in Division 2.
So you had a translator, right?
Yes. So we won Division 2. I got them to Division 1 in my first year there. And then we were playing Benfica, Sporting Lisbon.
Right. The
And
top teams there.
So it sounds like every time you'd go to a team, you would really improve them. Is it just by organizing them? Did you have principles that you'd learn? What?
I was very enthusiastic towards the game, and I read the game. I was very good at reading the game.
Right.
So you would make in-game adjustments?
I'd make adjustments in the game, like in Portugal, particularly because them days at Portugal, there wasn't big scores. They all played very defensive, Benfica, unless...
Park the bus.
Yeah, exactly. Like, have you played Benfica? You wouldn't get much from them, Sporting Lisbon, but that's the teams we finished up. We were playing in Lisbon, and then I was there for 3 years. Then
So how would you counteract those tactics? Like, what was your secret to being able to overcome that challenge? Because
them games, I think everybody, once you're out on the field and you were showing and talking to them and having different systems, they would pick it up, But the thing about the Portuguese, they all smoked, so I banned them from smoking.
Great.
that might have been the difference to making your team.
For their condition.
At the end of the game, they would have more
They'd be
stamina.
And I told them, if you're going to smoke, you don't smoke at this stadium,
Yes.
because people see it and,
It looks bad.
it looks bad.
Yeah.
Mm.
The young kids want to do it. So 3 years in Portugal. How was your life there with your family?
Well, I came
daughters?
back and there was teams want me to go there, and I finished up at Stockport, a team in the north of England, and the team was awful. I didn't do any good.
What a lifestyle change going from Portugal to the north of England.
Yes.
Yeah, and they kept talking to me about coming over to play, so I didn't have anything going on because it was midstream. All the teams are being coached, being fixed,
In the 1970s, we recall, the Dutch and John Cruyff and
Yeah.
the way in which Michael, as a manager, changed a bit the tactic. Where you, I imagine, you were following all that and maybe changing some tactics as well.
It was them days. They seemed to be like players moving out of Europe, going to Italy
Yes.
to play, and going to Holland to play. So I think people learned about the new tactics in
Right.
Italy, because Italy was very tight on not conceding a goal. You know,
Right.
Catenaccio.
Catenaccio, right?
Yes, and I think that's where a lot of managers picked it up, and that's
Right.
where I picked up different ideas.
And then the Dutch came with the all attack
Yeah,
and then
they
all defend
changed, yeah,
and then bring
that's
it.
Yeah,
But you needed
Total
a guy
football.
like Cruyff,
yeah.
right? You needed those type quality players to be able to institute it.
Now, how did you get to the United States from? So,
It was a funny situation. I was back in Dubai because Sheikh Faisal brought me back, and there's a player come over to do a camp from Liverpool, but living in Australia. So they said, Jimmy, is it possible to come to Palo Alto? And because we've got a camp going there in the summer. So I said, okay, because normally there in the Middle East you don't stay, and the weather is so hot.
it's too
So
hot,
hot,
right?
Yeah. So I went to Palo Alto to do the camp, and 2 kids turned up from Dallas. He said, we heard that you were there. I don't know how them days, because there wasn't a lot of things going on. So 2 of them turned up, and the war broke out in Kuwait.
Right.
You know, that side, and the people that sent the two kids said, "Jimmy, come back to Dallas." I said, "I don't know." So I finished up coming back to Dallas. I was there for less than a year. He said, "Look, we're going to start a new club. We want you to be the director." So that's how that's how it's the club started, Dallas Inter. And I was there for about 10 years or so. And then they moved to FC Dallas. They took the academy, changed the name to FC Dallas.
Right.
So I left and went to Liverpool as a coach. No, we got Liverpool to promote us, and I got the franchise in, so we used Liverpool name. And then I was there for 12 years, I think.
And this is back in Liverpool.
No, in Dallas.
Oh, so you got the Liverpool name
In Dallas.
In Dallas.
Yes.
What was it about Dallas that you knew that you wanted to stay here?
Well,
The climate?
I felt the people were nice at that stage, except when you didn't play.
Yeah, well, yes.
The people were nice, and I felt, lifestyle was good. And I felt the older you get, I think it's more going on. There's more things happening for old age than there would be in England. Like in England, mostly the older generation would go to the pub or go down to the betting shop.
Right. Whereas here,
there's more things to do for the older ones. You know?
Right. Did I understand you coached in MLS at some point?
No, I didn't coach in the league.
Were
no.
you ever interested in doing that, or the league wasn't as
The league wasn't
competitive?
going. I helped out when the new coach come and they got the franchise here in FC Dallas.
Oh, so you helped out for a while.
Mm.
Very good. I mean, the league has improved dramatically.
Oh yeah,
obviously, right?
Because of Europe looking at the players,
Right.
the players going to Europe, coming back. You know,
Improved skill sets.
and they're looking for players now from South America,
Right.
bringing them in. You know.
Yes, the influx of the foreign players has made a huge difference here, right?
Yeah.
The league is far more competitive.
Well-
and fun for the fan, for the average fan who didn't grow up with soccer. Now we're having lots of those.
I think the big thing that's changed since the kids were playing is that they can see games on the television
right.
every day. And
Every day.
what I say to players now, go and watch the player that plays in your position on the television and see how he runs when he hasn't got the ball, you know?
Right.
So I think that's why the standard here has got better.
Got better.
Well, you yourself said that helped you when you were young, is emulating players that you
Yes.
enjoyed.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Do you foresee, after all these years of being here, that the United States will progress on the international level? I mean, at the national team level, or do you?
What's holding us back?
What is holding the U.S. back, if any?
I think there's 4 big games in this country. People would go and watch football, then go and watch soccer, you know.
Right.
So there's the basketball, baseball, you know, all the sports. In England, basically, there's one sport. It's a
Yes.
religion. That's soccer, you know.
Yes, yes. Do you now, with the growth of the Latino market in the U.S., do you think that there's an opportunity for soccer to get more of the market share of those young kids, you know, that are in grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, to join academies like the ones that you've been so much a part of?
I think, the most important thing, as you probably know, is going to college.
Yes.
So by the time they go to college at 18, they get out maybe 20. I was playing in the first team at 17, 18. So you don't get that experience so young, you know?
Right.
So I think they get more opportunities in college to play other sports. And this is what I think soccer's just a 4th-rated sport.
Yes. But, you know,
But even if it's the 4th-rated sport, our population's so big. You think that you just think we don't get the best athletes? Is that the problem?
I think the best athletes would go and play football
Or
and
basketball.
American basketball,
right.
you know?
Right. But, we're going to get in the U.S. to easily, by 2050, so say 25 more years, to 400 million people or more. So soccer, football is getting a bad name because of the concussion issue. A lot of parents are saying, hey, I don't want my kid playing that. Soccer seems to be like a great opportunity.
I think it's a good opportunity. The main thing that I feel, a lot of the kids that are playing, for different clubs, they're not going to be professional players.
Right.
But if you can keep them focused on practice twice, 3 times a week, playing in tournaments,
Yes.
that is going to help them, because I think there's so many opportunities in this country to go somewhere else or do some of the
And the
wrong
international,
things.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you just play against the local is one thing, but the kids that get the opportunity to play against international players, they certainly learn a lot.
Yeah.
That would be my guess, right?
Oh, I think if they're watching, like, the television now is just unbelievable.
Yes.
There's games on every minute, and, top games every weekend. There's terrific games,
Yes.
So I think if the kids watch it and get excited about, like, I got excited about watching Brazil play,
Yes.
and picked up some ideas.
Absolutely.
And I've seen an improvement in the players because of watching the games on the television.
Yes. Are there any parts of your career that you feel you should have done differently, looking back on it?
I always think that I should have played a lot more for England and done better probably when, I had the
Getting more caps.
opportunities.
It was just because that guy was in your way, and then you got hurt when you got the chance.
Johnny
Yeah.
Ainge was a great player, and I didn't get the opportunity because them days you had to be the best player in England because there was only 11 players on the field.
Yes.
They didn't have any substitutes.
Right.
So you had to be the best player, at that stage.
Yeah. So it was that you had an glut of great players in those years when you were a pro in England. I mean, you guys were one of the best teams
and it was
in the
a
world.
2-man midfield, so it's not
Yes.
like nowadays they could fit 3 people in there.
Well, I think them days you never, unless you were the best player in that position, midfield or other positions, that you couldn't be picked for England because there's only 11, no substitutes.
Sure.
Yeah. Yes. So that was one of the things that, sometimes out of your control, but things that you could control. Do you wish you would have, stayed longer with Liverpool? I know you were sold that maybe you felt this is not good for my career.
Well, I think afterwards they went on to win the FA Cup, and
Yes.
I thought that I'd built up and put a sort of way and a means how to play at Liverpool. I was disappointed that I didn't stay and start playing in Europe, because them days they just started to play in Europe. I didn't get the opportunity to play in Europe or play with Liverpool in the cup final, or that. I think there's great opportunities
Right.
if I'd have stayed.
With it, and at the time, but there were not many going to Italy or other European nations to play, right? From England, were there
There was quite a lot of players starting to move to Italy,
to Italy?
Yeah, and move to Holland,
Right.
because I think they were paying bigger and better money.
Right,
Like today, players are going to Saudi Arabia.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, did you get a chance to play against George Best?
Yes, I played against him 2 or 3 times at Manchester United.
What made him apparently so much better? Or do you think he was better? Like, tell me what your experience. He's one of the iconic players from that era. Having played against him in person, what was it? Was it?
He was confident in his ability. He had natural ability that he could go around players, beat players. I mean, some of the goals he scored, they still, I think, show them.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And
Did he have more pace than other people?
he had it all. He could dribble. He could run. He could head the ball. You know.
So you say his confidence, right? So I imagine there were other players that had similar ability but didn't have the cheekiness or the confidence to do what he did. Tell me.
Well, I think, at Manchester United, they had Dennis Law, who was a great player. Bobby Charlton, of course,
Right.
everybody knows. Then Georgie Best came in, different player, could dribble a lot. Bobby Charlton and Dennis Law. Dennis Law was a great finisher in the box. Bobby Charlton was an all-round player. Georgie Best was exceptionally good on the ball and could beat players, scored goals, beating 3 or 4 players. And it was a character. He was different.
Yeah. Charismatic, and he trusted his talent, right? You have to do that to be that good.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had a shortened career because of personal demons and so on that have been talked about over the years, which it's sad.
Yeah.
It's the same happened to some Brazilian players like Garrincha, right? That exceptional talents, but sometimes the demons do take over, right? I see it sometime in my field. Do you feel that as a manager, you were both motivator, tactician, and that a good manager, what are the skill sets that a great soccer manager has to have in order to succeed?
I wasn't very ruthless with players. I was nice and probably too nice,
But that's your personality.
My personality, but I look at it the other way. It probably helped me to get where I've been, and I've stayed in the game all my life.
Yes, it's amazing.
Well, it seems like the connection that you've made with people, like you were saying, the Sheik calling you decades later.
Yes,
that was instrumental in your career, as in it helped you with your players to organize them, and they had trust in you. But then you were always someone else. Always when they would call and say, "Hey, what's he like?" Because you had connections with people, they would recommend you to the next job and to the next job. You had a long career.
Yeah, well, I was lucky that I was willing to go and travel,
Yes.
and I think working, 5 different countries, Dubai, Kuwait, Portugal, US, and England. So
Yes.
I've been lucky that I've been able to get a job and doing something I love doing,
Very impressive. Alf Ramsey, how did he get along with the players? The legendary Sir Alf Ramsey, right?
Sir Alf was very knowledgeable about the game and had his own ideas, which he done in the World Cup to win the World Cup with the ideas he got.
What are an example of some of the unique ideas that he brought that changed?
Well, I think he played with 4 in midfield and played with 2 out-and-out strikers,
Right.
Roger Hunt was one of them, and Jimmy Greaves, unfortunately, didn't carry on. He had a few problems, but he was the main player. And then they had a player from West Ham that scored 2 goals in the final.
Right. So he adopted the 4 midfielders with 1 or 2 could attack at any moment and join the 2 wingers.
I think as well that we were playing in England and we had the support behind us,
Yes, the fans are very important.
Yeah. But I remember Portugal.
Yes.
Eusebio.
Eusebio, yeah. The Black
great,
Pearl.
Great player. Scoring 4 goals.
Yes.
For Brazil.
They
for
put out
Portugal.
Brazil, right? They eliminated Brazil, in essence.
Yeah. Playing at Liverpool.
Yes. And he was exceptional.
Were you at that game?
I wasn't there. I watched it on the television.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, he was certainly a talent to behold.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
He had a hell of a good shot. And,
So in the U.S., you've been here a long time. Which players in the U.S. do you feel have really broken into the European world level class that you've seen develop from young on?
I had Jose,
Yes.
who's played for Dallas Inter
Yes.
and went on to play in the league. it was always a case, where is he? He's not arrived yet. He'd be the one player that we could depend on and score the goals or do anything he wanted.
Yes,
And I'd play him,
Yes.
Maybe I shouldn't have played him, I don't know, but he was the winner.
You
I needed him.
You needed him.
Yeah. Jose finished up playing for me for 4 years, and Hassan pinched him off me in the last year.
I see. And
Were you familiar with Dempsey coming up?
Yeah. I didn't get involved with him, but Keith Harder, who helped Dempsey, and I think one or two other coaches helped him. But he done really well. Went to England and played at Tottenham.
yes, yeah. And now there's a handful of them that are playing in England as well and other European clubs, right? So the U.S. Usually makes it past the first round, right? I think this is the first World Cup in some that they have not gone past the elimination phase, the first one.
Well, we're lucky this year. We've got the World Cup here in America.
Yes.
We don't have to qualify.
Yes. Well, I think
Neither
that's an
does Mexico or Canada.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, right? It's in the three countries.
That's good.
And it's my
I didn't
understanding.
realize about that.
Yes. So
The final's going to be here.
in Dallas.
Is it in Dallas?
Yes, we need to get tickets,
that-
actually.
Yeah.
Yes,
We were
it's going
hoping
to
that
be
you
here.
guys could help us with the
You guys be well connected.
Yeah.
So that will be in 2024? No, I'm sorry.
4
It'll
years.
be
What the last World Cup was last year.
was 22. So 26
Six,
in
yes.
26, correct. So yeah, that's the first time where that will happen, right? The World Cup will be in three countries
Yeah,
concurrently.
it's
That's
very
right.
unusual.
Yeah, that's a nice
never
experiment.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's a nice experiment.
Well, it's so
honestly.
expensive the way.
Well, but you have the stadiums already, and all three countries.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's so expensive for one country to do
Oh,
it
yes,
that
yes.
it's much easier to mitigate
Yes.
the cost
Yeah.
and split it between three countries.
Well, I think more fans will participate as well, and maybe more worldwide attention as well.
Can you believe how much football, or soccer as us Americans call it, has grown in the United States since you first came here?
Oh, yeah, it's just unbelievable that because the kids want to play, and parents would prefer at the young age, particularly, to let the kids play soccer and get a bit of experience than going to play football or other,
Yes.
because they're more likely to get injured and get hurt.
Right. Absolutely. So, any other advice for would-be parents of young kids? You guys, you work with the Texans. You work with many clubs. You have your pulse on the soccer worldwide community.
I would go and be a doctor.
Well, I chose. I knew my limits when it came to being an athlete. And although a decent athlete, I knew that I would make my living with my brain. It's a nice thing to know when you're a teenager.
Well,
But I played all the sports, and I love soccer, and
Yeah.
I played quite a bit in my till my 40s, soccer, competitively, usually with 30 and under teams. And it's one of the regrets I have, because I did injure my back, and I've had 4 knee surgeries.
Oh, gosh.
Yes, but
But you'd have a good doctor.
yes, but I enjoyed it, and I love playing pickup, even fast-paced soccer. I don't like the surface of the indoor, of course, but it really keeps you fit.
Yes.
It's a very good for the touch and go, and
Well, it's a good one for fitness,
yeah, the fitness as well. The other is, when we see the genius that, say, someone like Messi has been on the ball handling and the short passing, and what the Spaniards have brought of, the ticky-tack,
Yeah. His reading of the game is just unbelievable.
Yes.
He reads the game so good and lays them passes on. But the free kicks is just unbelievable.
Genius, like Maradona,
yeah.
almost, right? Like
Yeah.
Maradona.
Yeah.
well, do you know what Messi attributes him being good at free? Because he wasn't good when he was young.
I think he's had a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, a lot of success.
Well,
Yes.
he attributes Maradona, gave
Yeah.
him a tip. You know what
Yes.
Maradona told him?
Well,
He said, when you kick a free kick, have your foot go slow through the ball. Kick it like you normally do, but let your foot just linger a little bit we're talking about
the
fractions
spin.
of a
Yeah.
second,
Yeah.
because then you get more spin
Yeah.
on the ball. And he
Oh.
said as soon as Maradona taught that to him, from then on, he's one of the greatest free kickers.
Well,
in the-
that goal he scored against FC Dallas was a free kick.
Impressive.
I mean, the goalkeeper, he played it into the near post. It was just unbelievable.
Yes, unbelievable. To have the confidence to put it exactly there.
Well, when I was just a young kid, he started football in America.
Yes.
And they had Pele,
Yeah.
who played
For the
in
Cosmos?
in the Cosmos. And they had Beckenbauer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That team was stacked.
Yeah, they were stacked with skill.
the
and-
Cosmos, yeah.
Yes.
That was quite a show back in the early 70s.
In the early 70s,
Yeah,
it
what
was
a
just
beauty.
brilliant,
Yes. I remember his final game when he played for both sides. Santos one side, one half, and then
Yeah.
Cosmos the other. That was quite something
Yeah.
to watch.
So this is a health podcast, and one thing I just have to remark on, Fred, and maybe you can speak up. You're 86 years old,
Yes.
fit as a fiddle, spry, and I think we always talk about connection and fitness and how that helps with longevity and how that helps you live
Healthy.
the good Dolce Vita life as you get older. And you're a perfect example of someone who's used both connection to stay young and then physical fitness, where you're 86 and you're more aware and alert than a lot of Americans in their 50s.
I've been lucky that I've practiced and worked out nearly every day of my life. At present, I've got a bit of a bad back, but I still go to the gym and work on the back,
Yes.
But I think it's just dedication. It's all about dedication. I used to do Pilates every Monday, and then I stopped doing them the last couple of weeks. But most of the time I done that. I do a lot of stretching. So I've been lucky that way.
You have a personal culture of physical fitness since you were a young kid,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you played with your brothers, kicked the ball around, and then from there,
Well,
you became a pro at a very early age.
well, I played a little bit indoor here
Yes.
and a little bit of outdoor, and I think that's helped to keep me going. And
Absolutely. But also the connection to all these kids that you have had the opportunity to coach over decades.
yeah,
Because that keeps you young, seeing the smiles on their face, seeing them suffer or cry when they lose, or perhaps disappointment and the euphoria of when they do something well for the first time and they discover how to do that, curve the ball and put a spin on it, or how to optimize their skills.
well, I was lucky that I had a very good girls 84 team, and they were terrific.
They won
They won most of them, the tournaments and everything else. And I had one girl who was exceptionally good, Casey White. I don't know whether you've
she
heard of her.
played for the
She
US
played for the national
national
team,
team, yes.
and she was only small,
Yeah.
but had the ability to do everything on the ball. And
Yeah.
again, it was all about dedication.
Yes. She was on it. She
Her
loved
father
it.
played a little bit of soccer, and I think he brought her up to be playing. And
Wonderful.
yeah,
So she was in the generations pre the 99ers, right?
Yes,
The
Right.
famous
yeah.
ones that won consecutive World Cups. And
yeah.
I guess there's a documentary about their, great careers. And some of them are announcers now,
Yeah.
right? Or have been for a
yeah.
while.
Well, do you watch the Jamie Carragher? And
Yes.
yeah, I think it's a funny program.
Yes.
I remember Michael, the one player that is on that show, playing his first game for Manchester City.
You remember seeing
I
him?
remember seeing him. I was
Wow.
very impressed with him,
With him.
But he didn't stay there long, did he?
Yeah. No.
Apparently, they say that they offered him £100 a week, but he didn't want to take it. He finished up going to Italy, I think it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes money is a bad thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes people need to stay at a certain place for their development
Yes.
before they jump.
Right.
The development part. Anyways,
Well,
so
Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
You've been an absolutely delightful guest. If you have any questions for the doctor before we sign off.
We'll both.
No, I think the doctor is very enthusiastic about everything, and I'm sure he's going to look after himself and be fitter than I was at 84.
Well, I am blessed by my family. Is my microphone on?
No, I hear you great.
You can hear me? Okay. Blessed with good genetics, but you have to work at it. And it's a discipline and it's perseverance. And that's as simple as it gets. You have to put it as a priority to be mentally, physically fit, some people spiritual fit, and other endeavors that give you that natural endorphins, natural dopamine that keeps you young.
I think the great thing about staying young is remembering like,
You have, yeah.
all the players. I've got a good memory about like the players, but if something happened yesterday and it wasn't important to me, I wouldn't remember it, you know.
Right.
But soccer, I remember all that, you know, and all the players.
Well, well, thank you everybody for joining us. This has been the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, Davio Venturis. We've been joined by Jimmy Melia, and of course, as always, Dr. Federico. Please follow us on YouTube, Spotify. You can find our Instagram, Leverage the Podcast. We're also on Facebook and TikTok. Thank you so much for being.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Thank you for your presence. All right.